Hello, future developers. Welcome to another tutorial. So today we'll be learning about Flex. Okay, just an introduction to Flex. Okay, so Flex is going to help us align our um, elements, HTML elements, and then unlike the earlier days, you would have to use table and then some other CSS properties to you to achieve like some form of alignment, okay, to arrange your elements or the layout of your UI user interface. Okay, Flex makes it easier to be able to do that. Okay, so we have CSS grid and then Flex. Okay, so with Flex, we just display. So to be able to do that, okay, the Flex has a property that's the display flex. Okay, if we were to be using grid, you do display grid. Okay, so display colon grid, but with Flex we'll do display colon flex, okay, to be able to help us with the layout of our UI. Okay, so Flex works is one dimensional. Okay, one dimensional, so you are either working in the horizontal, which is the row, or you are working in the vertical, which is the column. Okay, unlike grid, which you can actually use two dimensional, you can actually work in two dimensional, like both row and then column. Okay, so that said, let's get started. So first, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a container. So div dot container. So div dot container. Okay, and then inside this container, okay, I'm going to create four buttons. So let's do button, close it, and then I'm going to type hello. Okay, so hello one. Okay, and then outside it, I'm going to hold Shift and Alt and then press the down key to duplicate it four times. Okay. Okay, let me format this well. So format document with HTML. Okay. So you can see here we have what's hello one, hello one, hello one. Let's change them to, okay, we can still leave it that way. So now all we have to do is to go to our main.css to see how Flex can help us with some layouts or the properties of Flex. But that said, remember to link your HTML document. Okay, so here I have linked my HTML document, which is this. As you see, I have only two files, the HTML and then the CSS file. Okay, so remember to link your main.css. So whichever name give to your main of your CSS, okay, remember to reference it here. Okay, so inside the head tag, now I'll go to my main and then I'm going to start styling. Okay, so dot container, which is a class, so dot container. Okay, then I'm going to, sorry, the container, so n, and then let's start with display flex. So display colon flex. Okay, so we are activating flex. Okay, so nothing happens. Okay, so by default flex is in a row form. Okay, so you can actually, if you want it to the buttons or your UI or your HTML element to be vertical, that's a column, you have to do flex direction and then you do column. Okay, so column, you can see we have it vertical. Okay, if I enlarge it, it's spanning the whole screen. Okay, so we can let's work on, so I'm going to my button, so button, then I'll change my button to, so the width size, okay, to 70, to 70 px. Okay, so you can see now it's in a column. You can see we have it in a column form. If I take this out, you see it's, so Control X. Okay, it's in a row form. Okay, so now let's work with, let's see which other property to use. So I'm going for the, so we have row gap. Okay, so to space this, we can use the row gap property in Flex. So row gap, and then I'm going to do 30 px. Okay, so you can see now we have some spacing. Okay, then let's try, so let's take we also have column gap. Okay, so let's take this out, Control X. Okay, and then we are going to do column gap, so to space this, so column gap. column gap, and then I'll do 30 px. And see we have columns. Okay, so 30 pixels as a spacing for our UI. Okay, so let's go back. On better still, let me just paste them here. Control V. Then I'll comment them all out. Okay, so now let's do justify content. So justify content. So justify content. We have center. So let's use center. Okay, so it's centering it. Okay, and then we have align items. Okay, so a flex property called align items, and then we'll give the value of center. Okay, so nothing happens. See, it's supposed to center it horizontally and vertically. Now let's do, we have flex stats. Okay, so justify content, we have flex stats. So flex stats. Okay, so it's starting from the starting point of our UI or of our web page. Okay, and then we have, let me comment this out. We have justify content, flex end. Okay, so it's going to push it to the end of our web page. Okay, now let's do that of spacing. So we have justify content space evenly. So justify content space evenly, or let's do space around, or better, so let's comment this out first. So control, let me comment this out, and then let's do space around. Okay, so space around. Okay, so space around is going to ensure that it has equal space around the elements, HTML element. And let's do justify content space between. So I'll comment this out. Justify content space between. Okay, so you can see you have space between evenly distributed, and then it's pushed it to the ends of the web page. Okay, so I can do justify content space around, space between, and then let's do space evenly to justify content space. Better still, let me comment this out first. Then space evenly. Okay. So you're going to ensure that we have equal spacing. Okay, so equal spacing. Okay, so if you actually want to learn more about Flex, the remaining tutorials, okay, subsequent tutorials will actually be working on actual projects that will help us to see how to actually position or lay out HTML elements or UIs in our projects. Okay, so in this particular lesson, we actually want to achieve this. Okay, so we'll learn to build this web interface, a simple web interface with these 3D models. So that said, let's get started. So still on our previous project, okay, there's the folder. I've actually just renamed it. You can use the same file. So there's the folder, and then I'm going to create a new folder. So I'll right click, that's for Windows users, then folder, and then I'm going to type images. So this particular folder is going to contain the images. Okay, so I have my images here. So I'll have the background image and then the logo. So I'll just cut and then paste them inside the images folder. Okay, so I have the logo and the AR background. So these are going to represent, okay, so there's going to be for the hero section. Okay, and then the logo is going to be here. So let's see what I have to do next. So I have to go to VS Code. Okay, so first let's open our project in VS Code. So I right click and then open show more. So that's for Windows users. Open with code. Yeah, VS Code. Yes, so I trust it. So this is my project, and then these are the codes. Okay, these are the codes. Actually, um, okay. Okay, so that's what we have for our code. Okay, let's see our CSS side. So now we want to actually work on these aspects. Okay, so we'll create our navigations, our logo, then work on this, and then the background. So that's it. Let's see. So inside our body, okay, inside our body, we are going to start with our header. So the header is going to contain certain uh, going to contain our navigation links. Okay, so like the home, the contact us, and then the URL. Okay, so inside the header, let's start with our nav. So our nav is going to contain the links. Okay, so nav is going to contain the navigational links, which is these ones. Okay, these ones, and then also contain the icon. So the opening and closing tag, in between the opening and closing tag, we're going to type our list. So we're going to make a list. So list is going to be li. Or first, let's rather create um, an ordered list. Okay, so an ordered list. So ul, we have ordered it in an ordered list. Okay, so ul. So ordered list does ol would number them so with numerals. An ordered list will actually give them bullets. Okay. So inside our unordered list, so we have the nav, and then inside our nav, we've created a list. We are going to create a list. So the list is going to be li. Then inside the li, we can start typing. But first, let's work on this. Okay. So we want to create a class that will help us to edit our links. So inside the opening tag of our li, sorry, ul, that's ordered list. We are going to create a class. So class, then we'll give our class a name nav hyphen links. Okay, links. And then inside the opening tag of our li, okay, no, sorry, here, in between the opening and then closing tag of our li, we are going to create a link. So A for anchor, and then href, hyper reference for our links. Currently, we are not going to insert any links, so we use the pound sign for that. Okay, so I've pasted in the pound sign. Okay, so you can see we have the bullets here, and then I'm going to use a greater than sign, and then I'm going to type home. So now you can see we have a home. And then anytime you see this underlined with a blue, it means it's a link. Okay, so the text with an underline. Sometimes you can decorate it with an underline, but if you are using an anchor tag with this, it actually underlines this by default. Now, for us to create additional three navs, what we are going to do is I'm going to click on hold Shift and Alt and then press down. So one, two, three. Okay. So that's the smart. So instead of us to type this three times, we just want to use hold on the Shift key and then the Alt key, and then press the down arrow key. So now what I can do here is to just change here to, let's say, about, then change here to let's say contacts, here to, let's say, AR. Okay, so with my screen splits, okay, I'm using a software for that. That's an extension in VS Code to help me to live preview whatever I'm doing. It's called live, I think live. Let me see. It's called live preview also. Live code or live preview, one of them. Yeah, you can get them from here you go to your extension, then type live preview, live code, and there you should be able to download it. So here I'm going to have to so inside the UL, so there's the closing tag for the UL. Okay. So outside it's in between, it's okay. So the nav, the closing tag for the nav, and then the closing tag for the UL. Okay. In between it, I'm going to create our image. So img. So our image is going to hold the logo. Okay, going to hold the logo as seen here. Okay. So now we have these which this ones. Okay. So img and then I'll give it src. So that's the source. Okay, and then the source, remember, is inside a folder called images. Okay, so it's inside a folder called images. So when you type, sorry, click here, images, then I'll click select this, and then we want the logo.png. So this is, as you can see, it's become bigger. What we have to do is to change that in our CSS. So in our CSS, so now I have to let me give an alt. So the alt is going to help for screen readers. So logo, I'll just type logo, and I'll close it. Okay, so now let's work on the text. Okay, so for the text, I'm going to create a container. So that is going to be outside our header. Okay, so that's going to be outside our header. Then I'm going to create a container. So just type div dot container. So the name or whatever. Let me give it a div dot let's say text hyphen. This is a shortcut container. Press enter. So you can see it's created a class for us. So inside, in between our container for the div, that's a text container, we are going to create another div. So div, so this div is going to hold our text. That's our hero text div dot let's say hero text hero hyphen text. Okay. So hero hyphen text. So which is this particular one that we want to do. So inside our opening and then closing tag for our hero hyphen text, we are going to type an h1 tag. Okay. Create an h1 tag, and then this h1 tag, let's say I'm going to type reimagining. Re So I've typed the reimagine reality. Then still inside this, we are going to create our text for this particular one. So let's go here. Then let's type, let's say, a paragraph. So a p tag, a paragraph. So inside our paragraph, we are going to type, let's create lorem. So lorem 20. So I want 20 text. So by default, it will fetch 20 text for me. Let's see where the text is. Okay, so you can see where it is. Okay. Don't worry, we'll actually style them in the CSS part. So let me see. So I'm going to create an ID. So inside our h1 tag, the opening tag for h1 tag, we'll create an ID. The ID is actually going to help us call these, okay, and style them in our CSS. Okay. So my ID, I'm going to call this h1 tag called head text. Okay. Then in our paragraph, I'm going to give it an ID. Let's say subtext. 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 Yeah. So that should be it for this particular one. Okay, remember a class. When you use a class, you can reference it in your. You can use a class. You can reference a class several times in your document or your file. But if you use an ID, the ID is unique to that particular element. So you can use. I can use this same ID anywhere. This particular name anywhere. But this class, I can use this class anywhere in in the file. So in our previous lesson, we learned to create the nav links and then the logo and then some hero text. So in this lesson, okay, we have to click on our style. .css. Okay. And remember, model viewer already comes with these text, these codes. Okay. So we want to customize it for ourselves. So first, what I'm going to do is I want every text in my document, okay, or in my website to have a particular font family or font style. So to do that, I'm going to click on the asterisk, then curly braces, then I'll type font family, then I like this Korea new, this particular font family. Okay, so this font should change so you can see what we have here. Okay. Then what we'll do next is we want to resize our logo. It's too big, so let me come here. Then let's check the name of our logo. Did we give our class? Okay, so in order to customize our logo, I have to click here, type class, and then I'll give this a name called logo. Okay, so now in our style.css, I can reference it with a period, that's a full stop, okay, and then type the logo. If it were to be an ID, okay, an ID, I would have used a pound sign. Okay, so kindly get a difference. Okay, we use a pound sign for IDs, and then we use the period or the full stop for classes. Okay, so in our this time we want to give it a width. So our width is going to be 30 pixels, 30 px. Okay, so where is our approach? Sorry. Okay, so you can see we have it here, 30 pixels. I'll also give it a height of 30 pixels, 30 px. Okay. Then let's see. Okay, if you look at the mouse pointer, okay, the mouse pointer is a pointer, so we want to change it to cursor to be a pointer. So when you mouse over, you can see the icon has changed to an arm. Okay. Then you can see here it's attached to the edge of the um, our web page. We don't want that, so we need a margin. We need to give it a margin just so we have some space in here. So we can give it a margin of so margin left. Okay, so there's the left side of our margin. So margin left, let's say 10 px, 10 pixels. Sorry, 10, 10 pixels. Okay, yeah. So we have 10 pixels. That's fine for this particular one. So now what we want to do is to work on our links. So first what we want to do, we want to take these bullets and then these text decoration out. So I'm going to click here and then we're going to type li, so our list, okay, our list, and then we are going to type what's list style. Okay, so list style will set it to none. Okay, so our bullets are in there. Now we want to work on the links. Okay, so the underlines, we don't want them. Okay, so in our index, let's see, so we have our list, and then remember they are inside what's an anchor tag. Okay, they're inside an anchor tag. So our list. Okay, so first let me just copy this first since it's inside this container. So I'm going to our CSS, and since it's an ID, I'll use a period. So a period, and then we'll use what's the A for the anchor tag. Okay, as you see here. So our class and then our anchor tag. Okay. So what we are going to do now is to type text decoration. And we'll set our text decoration to none. Okay, so you can see the underline is vanished. Then we would give our font size, let's say 1.5 rem, 1.5 rem. Okay, 1.5 rem. Then we can give it a color. Okay, but we'll change the color later to this particular color, which is white. That's when we insert the background image. Okay, so now we want to make them ordered, or to align horizontally. So to do that, let's come here. Okay, and then I'm going to type nav. Okay, so nav. Now remember the reason why we are not using periods and then pound sign for these ones. Okay, the nav and the likes. Okay, so nav is by default something that the HTML knows or the browser knows. Okay, for the classes, there are things that we actually um, are telling the browser. So these are things that are new to the browser. But nav, header, and body, they are all something that the browser knows. Okay, which is why the nav we are not going to reference it with a pound sign or a period. So nav, which is use display flex. Okay, so we want to use CSS flex for this. So display flex. Okay, and then so you can see it's aligned horizontally. Okay, I'm going to give it a padding top um, of first. Let's wait. Okay, let's take this out. And then let's work on this. Okay, so let's work on this first. So I'm going to tap nav UL. Okay, so the ordered list. Okay, so the ordered list, which is this the list. Okay, we are going to do display flex. Okay, so you can see the flex horizontally. And then justify contents. Let's use end. Now the reason why it's not going to the end is we need to give it an order. Okay, so let's give it an order of let's say 2. Okay, so you saw what happened. So yeah, so we have our order. So our home, and these ones are here now. Okay. So now we can come back to this one. Then let's say justify content space between. This is space between. Okay. So it's giving us a space between the this and then the logo. Then we can give it can give our logo a top margin of 10. So where's our logo? Our logo, okay. Or better still, would work on it. Let's see where to do that. Let's set where's our logo? Give it an order of 1. Okay. Order. So that's fine. Okay. Okay, so now let's work on the spacing. So the spacing, so with the spacing, we are going to use nav link or nav links, and then we'll use the li. We give it a padding of 0 px and then 20 px. So this is just a shortcut for top and then bottom and then this left and right. So we're giving our left and right 20 pixels, okay, each. Okay. The top 0. Okay. Now what we want to do is to have our background image and then style the text for the hero text. Okay. So that said, I'm going to split my screen and we have to first let's work on let's see. So let's work on the header. So with the header, I'm going to come here. So header. So this is our header. Remember our header. So our header contains all these here, all these apart from the model. So what we want to do is to give it a background image. So background image, and then sorry. background image, we use URL. Then we'll type images. Okay, remember our image. Okay, our background is in the folder images, so which is why we need to reference the directory or the folder for which is in. And we want this particular. So you can see we have it here. So we'll work on that just so it fills the screen. So we're going to give it a width of 100%. 100%. Okay. Then a height of 100 view port height. Okay. Yeah. So you can see when we use the viewport, what it's trying to do, when we use viewports, what it's trying to do is when the person visits the page, we want the image to fill the entire screen of the person. Okay, so depending on the device the person is using, if you use the vertical height, sorry, the view height or viewport height, it's going to fill that particular screen. Okay, the size, the screen size of the person. That's the current viewport or view that the person is seeing. So the person has to scroll before the person can see any other thing. Okay. But you can see our image is repeating and then it looks not centered in the lights. Okay, so let's solve that. So we'll solve that using um, background repeats. We'll set background repeats, background repeats. So no repeats, no repeats, hyphen repeats, no repeats. Okay, so let's wait and see. Okay, we'll work on these ones later. And uh, then background position, background position. We'll center it, we'll center our image. Okay. Then background size. So background size, want to make it cover. Okay. So now if we enlarge it, you can see what we have here. It's well positioned and looks very beautiful. Okay. Now let's see what we need to do is to um, see. So we need to give some transitions. So if the person mouses over any of the text, we want it to give it some form of animation or some kind of yeah animation. Let's use animation for transition. Okay. So to do that, our nav link. Okay, we are going to use nav hyphen links. Okay, nav hyphen links. And what we want to do is li, then a tag. So li and a tag. Then we're going to type color. So color is basically the text color. Usually you would think it's what's the name? You would have to type font color. No, if you type color, it should just work. Okay. So it's changed the text to this particular color. That's not what we want. That isn't what we want. So we need to use the property that's colon and then hover. Okay, so hover. Okay, so when the person hovers, that's when it changes. Okay, but we need to give some transition. This looks very raw. Okay, so what we are going to do is just come here. You can basically just copy this, paste it here, and then take the hover out, okay, curly braces, and then just type transition. Then we use 0.3 seconds. So let's see how it's going to transition. You can see smoothly. Okay. Okay. So let's see what we have here. Okay. So what I can do here is, if you like this color, you can leave it here this way. Okay. But if you want to change the color, basically you can just use the nav hyphen links here, and then we'll give it a color property. And then let's see. Let's just use white. This particular color. Okay, so let's enlarge it and see our project. So basically, this is our project, and then all we are left with is to work on the text. That's the text for this side. Insert a background image for our header. So we currently would want to do this. Okay, so first of all, let's give some padding for this side, okay, our image. That's our logo. So that said, I'm going to my logo. I have to go to my logo. Let's give it a top, a margin top of let's use 10 px. Okay, so you can see we have a space here. Now let's go here, then let's look at what we have. Okay, so remember, if for some reason you are editing or typing your code in CSS and it's not working, there might be several factors. Okay, one of them could be that you've not linked this file or this particular link is missing. Okay, so this particular link links your HTML, which is your HTML with your CSS. Okay, so if it's missing, anything you do in your CSS wouldn't take effect. Okay, also there might be other things like your class naming and then your ID and the likes. Okay, so do take note of these things. So now let's see. So we want to work on our hero. So the hero. So here, so first let's start with our text container. Remember, it's a class, so as usual, we would use a period sign. So let me do it here. I'm going to paste it here. The reason why I'm copying and pasting it is sometimes you might do some typo error, and then it wouldn't take effect. Okay, so you might be thinking it might be something serious that is wrong, but it's just because of instead of you typing container, maybe you would write a or you would do a different like spelling mistake. So sometimes you just have to copy and paste. And VS Code is sometimes smart enough to just correct you on that. Okay. So first, let's do. Let me split our screen. Okay. And I'm going to type display flex, colon flex. So where is our text? Let's see. Okay, display flex. And then let's justify content. Let's do its center. Let's see what's happening. Okay, so I noticed an error. Okay, so what we need to do is this particular div, which is the text hyphen container, I'll comment it out by holding control and then forward slash. Okay, and then we can trace its closing tag here too. So we'll also take the closing tag out. So that since our paragraph, okay, that's the subtext, and then our H1, which is the head text, already have a container called the hero text. So they are all inside this container called the hero text. So I'm going to take this out. Then let's rather do the hero text. Okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to type. I think our hero text is rather. Let me see. It's a class. Okay. So our hero text is a class. Uh, Okay, so I noticed an error, okay, because our hero text, okay, that's this particular text, which is a container or div, okay, already contains these elements, okay, which is the ID, our subtext, and then that's our paragraph, and then our each one tag. So there's no need for this particular container, so I'm going to take it out. That's the opening tag and then the closing tag for it. Then I'll go to our CSS. Let me just copy this hero text. And then let's go to our CSS. I'm going to paste it here. It's a class, so don't forget to add a period. Then we want to position this text. We want to center it here. So what we can do is to just type position. Then we use position absolutes. Okay, position absolutes, and then we'll give a top. we are trying to center it to top 50 percent. Okay, so you can see it's moved up 50% from the top. Okay. And then we'll use the left, also 50%. Okay. So this is shifted to the left. So now we want to use a property called transform translate. Okay, so transform, transform, translates. Okay, so this is going to position our container so we get like it well centered within this particular container or UI. So x on the x-axis, that's 50% minus 50%, and then the y-axis to minus 50%, minus 50%. Okay, so you can see it's well centered. Okay, it's well centered. Okay. So now, even though the text is small, we'll work on the text. So now we need to center this text. So which text is that? Which is going to be the head text. So the head text, it's an ID. So we give it an ID. So I give it a name. So I reference it using the pound sign, head text, and then we are going to just use text align, and then we use center. So it should be centered. So you can see it's centered. If I you can see it's centered with the text. Okay, in the middle. And do same for our ID for let me see the subtext. Even though it's centered, we want to center the text itself. Okay, so text align. Also use center. So now it's well centered. Okay, it's well centered. Then we just need to resize it. So to resize our subtext, let's give it a class. Sorry, a size. So font size of let's use which is our subtext. Let's use 1 rem. Let me see 2 rem. I think one is okay. So 1 rem. Sorry, 1 rem. And then for our hero text, no, our head text, let's use um, 5 rem. 5 rem. Okay, it's quite okay. And we can actually do and work with the color for so color. Let's use this. I'll do some for this subtext. Or the subtext. Let's see what we have. Okay, so let's rather do white for this one. So white. Use white smooth. Okay, so this is our final lesson for our hero section. You might want to also increase the size. Probably let's do 1.5 for this. 1.5. Okay, this quite okay. Yeah. So that said,